Hey, Nighthawks!
We're academic coaches at UNG,
and we spend our days in coaching conversations,
talking all about your success in college,
the tough moments, the little wins,
understanding your strengths and the skills you need to thrive.
We're here to share real coaching moments,
offer you practical strategies,
and simple steps that you can apply today.
We believe you have what it takes to succeed at UNG,
and we're cheering you on every step of the way.
This is Nighthawk Coach Talk. Hey Nighthawks, welcome back to Nighthawk Coach Talk. I'm your host, Hannah England, and I'm here with two amazing ladies. We have Marin, who's our peer coach on the Dahlonega campus, who y'all all know, and a new guest, Dr. Crystal Edenfield, who is our Director of First Year Experience. Hey, Crystal.
Hey.
Do you want to give our listeners just a brief overview of who you are and what you do at UNG?
Yeah, so I'm fairly new to UNG. I started in October of 2025. So my position's fairly new, and my main job is to help students transition from high school to college and beyond. So I am here to listen to you, to understand your feedback, to incorporate that into programs, and to really just make sure that you're successful no matter what you do at UNG.
Awesome. We are so glad to have you part of our UNG team. And today we're going to talk about something that I think is so important. When students transition from high school to college, it's a big jump. Mm-hmm. You are probably thinking a lot of things, but sometimes students just think, oh, it's just high school with a different schedule, or it's just like classes I've already taken before, but at a different campus with more students. And that's not always, that's not the case at all, really. So how would you describe that transition from high school to college?
Just like you said, I think students are thinking they know what is happening, and then they get here and there's a big culture shock of there's new people, there's new classes, there's new schedule, and everything is new and it's uncertain. And you may be the expert of being a kindergarten through 12th grade student, but you're not an expert yet of being a college student. And so I think that transition can be exciting. It could be overwhelming. It definitely comes with all the feels.
Yeah. Marin, thinking back to your transition from high school to college, what was that like?
Well, I have a little bit of a unique experience because my first school that like my elementary school, half of my high school, or most of my middle school, was a college prep school. So I got to have that, building block. And then for my last 2 years of high school, I went to just a Georgia public high school. So I got to see what, that looked like not going to college prep school. So I do think I was a little bit more prepared coming into college, but I vividly remember, like, within my first week after classes had started, the thing that got me was the Tuesday, Thursday classes, Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes. I just was blown away. Like I was like, how am I going to keep track of this? Like I have these classes and I work for these classes, and I also have different ones on other days. And of course I had just moved in. So I was obviously very overwhelmed by a lot of different things at that time. But I mean, just vividly thinking about that and being on the phone with my parents, like, how do people do this? I've just gotten so used to you do the same classes every single day and you have them for 50 minutes and you see the same people every single day. So it's definitely a lot because you have that schedule on top of emotional changes and all that stuff. So that's just the part that I vividly can think back to, being on the phone. It's specifically the schedule changes, but it's so much more than that.
Yeah. Well, and that was probably the schedule changes was a physical thing you could point to, but it was also probably, like you said, so many layers beneath that. And that is a big thing for students to get used to. So they're probably used to 50 minutes every day or sometimes a block schedule. But in college, you have maybe 4 or 5 classes. Some are Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Some are Tuesday, Thursday. Some are just Monday, Wednesday. There's a variety of schedules. So that's definitely a difference. And trying to find balance in how do I manage these classes is a hard adjustment. And I think with that comes time management. That is one thing we see so often is students are like, oh my gosh, I have all this freedom, all this free time. But in reality, they don't actually have all that free time.
Right.
So what does that look like for the transition?
I think students start off with the mindset of, okay, I have class from 8 to 3, like we talked about, but really it might be 9 to 9:50 or 9 to 10:15, and then you have a 2-hour break. And so you don't really know what to do with all of that extra time, or you have all your classes on 2 days a week, and then you have 3 days a week that maybe you're working or you're trying to fit in studying and you're trying to fit in joining a club and going to an event. And so I think that transition can be hard when you have a lot of freedom, but maybe not a lot of freedom at the same time you have obligations to get done. And that transition can be hard.
Absolutely. And so a lot of students think the habits that they've had in high school are going to transfer into college and they're going to be totally fine. Marina's like, absolutely not. So tell us about those habits that you thought would transfer and did not.
Honestly, it is so much of, I feel like a lot of times in high school, I love this part of high school, is your teachers really are there to provide a ton of extra support. Like if you fail something or whatever, you can get 50% back if you turn it in late, or like things like that. And I just know for a lot of students, when it comes to college, your college professors, though they are there to help you and they will provide that support, you have to seek that support out, because they're busy. They have a lot of things going on. They have a lot of students. And so it can be a little bit trickier managing that, making sure everything is on time. You're studying enough, because it's a lot more material instead of having a class for a whole year, like how I did at my public school. At home, you have a class for a semester, so you cover a lot more material in half the time, basically. So learning how to study for that appropriately, study for multiple classes at a time. You don't really have class time in class to study, which I know a lot of high school classes do. You have to build outside time for it. So definitely just putting in the work outside of that, looking for help when you need it, because you're not just given that automatically. Like, you do have to seek it out sometimes. But that's just a couple of the things, but definitely figuring out what to do with that time and making sure you're preparing appropriately for what you need to.
And I know I'm ancient. I went to college in the early 2000s, but studying blew my mind. I did not have to study a lot in high school. Even my AP classes were, I'll just say they were a joke. I didn't end up getting AP credit because they were such a joke, but I did not have to study in high school. And so all the reading that came along with college classes just really threw me for a loop. And once I got behind, I was so behind. And I did not seek out help. So there wasn't a lot for me to do to try to catch up and get back ahead. And so I really encourage students to try to find their study method. It took me a while. I saw some friends doing note cards. I saw other friends staying up all night and cramming. I saw friends going to tutoring, but it ended up being chapter outlines is what worked for me, and just repetitively typing the material over and over. But you have to figure out your own study method to help when you transition from high school to college.
Absolutely. All of those things that y'all said are things that I see with students all the time. One of the big ones that Marin, you mentioned was that class time and thinking, oh, I only have class 9 to 9:50 on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And you feel like you have so much free time, but you actually have readings and you have assignments and you have to study. And so there's so many other things that go into that outside of just your 9 to 9:50. And I think that can be hard to talk if you're still living at home or you're with people who aren't in college. It might be hard to have that conversation of like, yes, I'm only in class for 12 hours a week, but I also have to study 24 hours a week. You know, that's kind of the typical. So that's a big adjustment. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not just go to class, go home. It's go to class, go home, study, complete assignments, things like that.
And some families in some cultures, you're expected to do a lot of things at home. So if you're still living at home and commuting to a college campus, it may be awkward and hard to have that conversation with your parents or your grandparents or whoever you may live with, that yes, even though I'm home, I do still need to study. I do still need to dedicate time to my college experience. And a lot of students end up just staying on campus instead of going back home, finding those study rooms on campus, the study nooks on campus, and trying to make the most of the time while you're here.
Absolutely. You mentioned kind of the blocks in your schedule. Like you might have a 9 to 10:15 and then have a 2-hour gap and then maybe like a 1:15 class. So using that time really to study and make the most of the time that you're on campus is really important. You also mentioned support from your professors and teachers. And I think in high school, you do have a lot more direct hand-holding support where your teachers might be like, oh, you missed this assignment. Make sure you get it in. Or I've had students tell me like, I could just turn everything in the last week and they would grade it. That's not the same in high school, or it's not the same in college. You have to be on top of your assignments. Sometimes professors don't remind you of assignments or due dates. So using the syllabus, using like a calendar to track that is really, really important.
I know some students use D2L in high school, and D2L is our learning management system here where all of your classes get put online, but some of the professors use it in different ways. And so sometimes all of your assignments are put in there and you get notifications that they're due. Other times they're not. And so it may just be a learning curve of like how each professor announces when the assignments are due. So staying on top of your syllabus, on top of your course schedule, it's super important when you're trying to manage all the assignments and the due dates.
Absolutely. And you've talked about finding the study method that works for you, finding the management system that works for you for dates and things. What are some other habits that might be helpful for students to build as they're jumping into college?
One of the most common things that students tell me is that they don't know how to make friends. And, we're still coming out of COVID, whether you were in middle school in COVID or some of us, our staff members were working here or maybe in college during COVID. And so we lost that social connection during that time. And this generation also, you're so used to communicating in social media and behind screens. And so it's awkward sometimes to talk to new people and make friends. And so I think that's one of the most common things students tell me is that it's really hard to make friends and meet new people and build your community.
What would you say to a student who's having trouble with that?
I would say talk to someone in your class, beside you, in the dining hall or in the food court, in the library. Be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Be comfortable with those awkward conversations. Just see if somebody has an interest, compliment their outfit, compliment their water bottle, a sticker that they may have somewhere, a pin on the backpack. Just make friends by having those tough conversations with people, those awkward conversations, and just get to know people. Go to events, go to clubs. There's lots of different ways in your residence hall, if you live on campus, that you can just meet new people and try to make friends that way.
Awesome. Moran, what are some of the habits that you built as a student to help you be successful?
I would say one of my biggest ones is you mentioned earlier, like having gaps in your schedule. It's very rare that you can get your classes consistently to be like back to back to back. Like you're always going to have like an hour gap or a 2-hour gap or something like that. I actually purposely try to build my schedule like that because it like forces me to be on campus and need something to do. Like 2 hours is not enough time for me to drive all the way back home or back to my apartment and, do whatever, hang out with people and then come all the way back to class and all that. So by doing that, it forces me to go somewhere on campus, sit down, work on whatever work I have done. And then that way my evening is usually free because I will have worked on it earlier in the day or things like that. And that's something I've consistently done. Freshman year is sort of an accident. Like they made my schedule like that and it forced me to like do that. And since then, I've just really enjoyed always having like an hour in between my classes to either prepare for my upcoming class or review for my last class or something like that. So that would be one of my biggest habits that I have built. And then also just kind of like you said, getting involved, having those awkward conversations with people at your table, because you never know if you need like notes or something. Like if you miss a day of class and you need someone to ask for notes, and then that could turn into something, do you want to go study later? Do you want to hang out? And so just having those awkward conversations and getting to know people, and it just makes it feel much more community-based, and also can help you out, like if you do miss a day of class or something.
Yeah, I love that advice. I think one of my goals in college was to make a friend in every class, or maybe not a friend, but like at least a contact.
Like know someone? Yeah.
Yes. So like if you were sick and had to miss, then you could be like, hey, did you get the notes from today? Or what's assignments coming up? Or are you struggling with this assignment? I don't know what to do. Do you? And so just having that connection of one person in every class is really important.
I agree.
So, Crystal, I know you're director of first year experience. So how does your office help students with that transition?
Yeah, so one of the most popular ways is going to be the UNG 1101 class that I mentioned before. And that class really just teaches you how to be a college student. So we're going over time management strategies. We will have you map out your day or your week and let you track different moments that you could work out, or you could work, or you can go to an event, or this is time for studying and this is time for class. We talk about different study methods. We talk about how to make friends. We talk about the proper way to write an email, the proper way to talk to your professor. We talk a lot about sense of purpose and goal setting, and making sure you're staying on track with what you want to accomplish while you're here. And so those are just a few ways that class specifically can help you. And then outside the classroom, we're doing programming to match what you're learning inside the classroom. So we may host an event. We may partner with academic coaching. We may partner with other resources on campus. That's really going to help you maximize your potential and maximize your strengths, and use that for success here during your time at UNG.
Awesome. Love that. And I do think UNG really puts a lot of effort into students, all students, but those first year students, because it is such a big transition, and it's important to find your place and get your footing and build those habits so that you can be successful moving through.
Yeah.
All right. So a lot of times I hear students say they don't want to ask for help when they come into college, because in high school, it's like, oh, you only go to tutoring if you're struggling, or your counselor advisor is only there if you for that one meeting to talk about where you're going to college, and support looks really different in college. So can you tell me a little bit about that difference?
Yeah. I think one of the things that students don't realize is that included in your tuition and fees are all of these free resources on campus. Like, you've already paid for them, so you need to take advantage of them. Things like counseling, it will never be as cheap as it is to go to therapy than it is when you're in college. Tutoring, and not only in-person tutoring, but we have online tutoring 24 hours. So if it's midnight, if it's 2 a.m. and you need some help, you can tap into that resource. But I really think that support looks different because you have to seek out the resources. They're all there, but we need to know that you need help in order to point you into the right direction. So a big piece of advice that I could give first-time college students would be just be okay with asking for help. So many students have told me by the end of their first semester or the end of their freshman year, I just wish I would have taken advantage of the resources and the support systems before. I wish I wasn't so scared to ask for help.
Yeah, and I would also say something that I hear a lot is they not only choose not to ask for help because they think it has to be for when they're struggling, but also a lot of students, I feel like I've heard they look back on their freshman year and they say, oh, I wish I had taken it more seriously. I wish I had really locked into my classes and done better in my classes, especially being a kinesiology minor. I hear a lot of students who are going to PT school or OT school or PA school, things like that, who are applying for programs, and they're like, oh, I wish my GPA was better, but because freshman year I wasn't really locked in yet, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, I didn't know how to do it, and I didn't ask for help because I either didn't know those resources existed or I didn't want to use them. So definitely, as soon as you get here, set your future self up for success, take it seriously right from the get-go, know that you have those resources that you can use, they're not just for when you're struggling, but get familiar with using them now, because they're always going to be available to you and they're always super helpful. So.
Absolutely. And I also think that like sometimes students think they're doing okay because, like in high school, you might be used to turning in things late and getting full credit or mostly full credit. But then a lot of times professors have policies of like, if it's more than a day late or something like that, then you don't get any credit. And so I've heard a lot of students be like, oh yeah, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm doing great. And then they come to me at the end of the semester and they're like, I failed that class. Mm-hmm. So I think being really realistic about where you're at, communicating with professors is really important. All of those things to just make sure that you're making the most of that first year. And you like better to be over prepared and over cautious than under prepared and under cautious, and then get to the end of the semester and be like, oh no, I messed up.
I think you're exactly right. Like, students don't realize how much attendance and participation counts in their grade, or a final project could be 30-40% of your grade. So if you don't turn it in, you fail the entire class. And so I was that student. I know I talked about struggling reading earlier, but I lost my Hope Scholarship my freshman year, and I was never able to get it back because my grade point average was so low after my first year. No matter how many A's and B's I made, it never came back up. And to your point about grad school, I had applied for a doctoral program. So I'd already gotten my bachelor's, already gotten my master's. So I proved that I was a good student in my graduate program, applied for a doctoral program, and got denied because my undergrad GPA was low. And they didn't think I was a serious enough student. Even though I had a 3.9 at my master's program, my undergraduate program kept me from getting in.
Yeah, I think that's important because they do, like, this follows you, and not to scare students, because, we all have those moments where we didn't do as well as we wanted to, or it's a rough semester, but like these grades follow you if you're interested, or even if you don't think you're interested. Like, I did not think I was going to go get my doctorate, and now here I am. And so I'm glad I took my undergrad seriously, because I can't imagine getting denied because of a year that I was adjusting to college.
Right, exactly.
Well, and a lot of freshmen, I feel like, don't know what they want to do, and so they don't have that motivator, and so they don't really care as much about their GPA or their classes, because they're like, well, I don't even know what I want to do yet, and it's hard for them to succeed in the classes when you don't have that motivation. So just always seeking out that motivation, even if it changes over time, to motivate yourself to do better in your classes. And then hopefully then set yourself up for, like, if you do go get your doctorate at some point, like, you never know, maybe you figure out you want to go to PA school your sophomore year, and then you already have that background. So,
and we could talk a lot about motivation. I think that's huge when it comes to getting into college and being successful in college, but I think that might be a longer conversation for another day. So just to kind of like wrap us up today, what do you wish every student transitioning from high school into college knew during that transition period?
Wow, that's a good question. I think that you do need to take it seriously, because, you can mess up, and we all make mistakes. And so that's not the point, but take every class seriously, take your college experience seriously. It's not just in the classroom, it's outside the classroom. The resources that we have for support, the events that we have that you can make friends and make new skills, learn new skills. And then your inside the classroom studies. Just have a good college experience, and just know that it's going to be different than high school, but it will be as much as you put into it. I think that one major difference between high school and college is that it's a time that you can completely reinvent yourself. So you don't have to be who you were in high school, whether you weren't that strong of a student or you didn't express yourself the way that you always wanted to. I think college is a time where you're going to meet people that are completely different from you for the first time, but it's also a time that you can express yourself differently and completely reinvent yourself if you want to. And that's a really exciting opportunity for students.
I would say know that it's okay to struggle just as long as you're putting effort towards your goals and you're trying to seek out help. If you're not succeeding, but you're trying really hard, that's okay. Like, it'll come when it comes, or you maybe need to try a different approach or something, but luckily we have all the resources here for you to do that. But make sure you're taking it seriously. Make sure that you're not just failing your classes because you're not really taking them all that seriously, because you never know in the future that's not going to look great. You know, if you do want to go to grad school, or, you know, just looking back, it's always kind of like a nice sense of achievement to be like, oh, I really did try freshman year. I came in strong and I ended strong. So just take it seriously, but also know that it is okay to struggle if you're doing something new or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Good pieces of advice. And I would just reiterate, you're not alone. Everyone's coming in probably feeling the same way you are. So just, I feel like I say this every episode.
It's an important thing.
It is. Give yourself grace. Be kind to yourself. This is new. You've never done this before. So it is okay if it's messy, crazy, uncomfortable. Like, just enjoy that experience, enjoy the time, and have a great college experience. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, thank you again, Crystal, for joining us, and Marin for coming back. And we hope you all have a wonderful transition into college and make the most out of your college experience. Bye.
Bye.